attending today's. Good afternoon, and thank you for attending today's Super 101 webinar. We'll give everyone a few moments just to join the webinar, and we'll continue and commence shortly. Thank you. My name is Christine Howard, and I'm a member account specialist with Brighter Super. An important part of my role is guiding our valued members towards a comfortable retirement. By the end of today's webinar, we aim to give you some useful information on the basics of superannuation. I'm joined today by one of our member account managers, which is Peter Hoban, who will be monitoring your questions in the chat today. So just an acknowledgement of country, Brighter Super acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands on which we are meeting and pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And we acknowledge and celebrate the continuation of a living culture that has a unique role in our region. It is important to understand that the information and examples contained in the webinar are general in nature and have been prepared without taking into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It is important when making decisions about your super options that you obtain the relevant product disclosure statement and target market determination and consider your own personal circumstances. You can access these documents in the Privacy Policy and Financial Services Guide from the Brighter Super website. Today's presentation will run for about 30 minutes. Many of you have submitted questions already, which we have tried to incorporate into the presentation. You can also post questions in the Q&A feature during our presentation today, which we will aim to answer directly. And as mentioned, we have Pete standing by as moderator today. Now, Pete has been with the fund for over 10 years. He is regularly out in the field meeting members in different regions across Queensland.
Hi everyone, thanks for attending today's webinar. You're in great hands with Chris. We've got a lot of good information. Please feel free to use the Q&A tool to ask any questions. If we're not able to get to the questions during the presentation, we'll try and get them answered at the end of the presentation. If we can't answer them there, you will be contacted. So we're definitely going to do our best to answer any questions that you have. But for now, please enjoy the presentation. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Pete. We should have time for the questions at the end, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible, as Pete said. We will also be running some poll questions throughout today's presentation. And when the questions pop up on your screen, please just click an answer that is appropriate to you. So who is Brighter Super? Before we move into our main subject, I'd like to take the opportunity to briefly explain who we are, as we have some non-members joining us today. So the merger between LGIA Super and Energy Super, plus the acquisition of Suncorp Super, has enabled us to increase our size and scale, yet we remain committed to investing in the personalised member services that you know and enjoy. We serve over 230,000 members with over 32 billion in funds under management, and we received double-digit returns for the balanced accumulation and balanced pension options for the year to 30th of June 2024. Now, let's talk about superannuation. So what is superannuation? The purpose of superannuation is to preserve savings to deliver income for a dignified retirement alongside government support and in an equitable and sustainable way. Now, most of us make our contributions every year, but we don't really think about how much we really need until we come to the age of 50. And then we think, oh, my word, I haven't looked at it. So let's explain what superannuation is and how it works. So super is linked to your employment. So your employer contributes money into the account on your behalf, and your money is then invested, and any fees and insurance premiums are deducted, and what remains is your benefit. Superannuation is important now, as it takes a long time to save up enough money to retire on, and making good decisions early is essential. So understanding the value of compound interest here, there are benefits of contributing extra to your super. The money your employer is putting into super for you is a great start. But by adding a bit more, you can make a huge difference to your retirement balance. And now is just the time to start to think about your super, even if it feels a long way off. Compounding returns make a difference. You don't need to add a lot to see a big difference. By contributing even an extra $20 a week over 40 years, your balance could be $125,000. If you add $50 extra per week over 40 years, your balance could be over $314,000. This is assuming a 5% return compounded annually before fees and costs. So benefits of starting early are using your previous example of $20 per week until the age of 60. Let's just take a moment to look at how different this could be if you started this extra contribution earlier or later in life. You can see by starting earlier, you have more time to benefit from compound returns on your superannuation savings. Imagine the difference that $125,000 would make to your retirement compared to $13,000. There are some important points to consider before deciding whether to add extra funds into your super. With all contribution types, there are contribution caps to be mindful of. We'll cover these caps in detail later in the presentation. Depending on your level of income, some types of contributions may be more or less tax effective, so you should carefully consider what is right for you. You should review your budget to ensure you can support the reduction in take-home pay. Any additional contributions you make also form part of your preserved amount, which you cannot access until you meet a condition of release, generally retirement. So now that we know what superannuation is and the potential benefits of increased contributions, we need to talk about ways, to put money in. So what are the contribution caps? There are two types of super contributions: concessional or before tax, and non-concessional or after tax. The concessional contribution limit for the current financial year is $30,000. Concessional contributions are made from pre-tax money and include employer, salary sacrifice, mandated or voluntary, tax-deductible personal contributions. If you exceed the cap, excess contributions are taxed at your marginal tax rate. Non-concessional contributions comes from money that you've already paid an income tax on. As a result, these contributions are made after tax and no further tax is deducted. Under current rules, you can potentially contribute up to $120,000 per financial year. Under the age of 75, you can bring forward up to $360,000, depending on your total super balance. There are other considerations, so please consider seeking advice. Later in the presentation, we will discuss how we can help you with this. So how can we contribute money to super? It depends on your overall taxable income. Australia has a tiered personal taxation system, which means we get taxed at a progressively higher rate the more we earn. If you're earning between $45,001 and $135,000, your overall marginal tax rate will be 30%, plus the Medicare levy of 2% if applicable. If you're earning over $135,000, your tax rate may be even higher. Let's apply this to super contributions. An after-tax contribution simply means that income tax has already been deducted from the money before it is contributed into super. There's no tax on entry to the fund and forms part of tax-free component within superannuation. If your employer allows you to salary sacrifice, or if you claim a tax deduction on your after-tax contributions, the contributions are taxed at a rate of 15%. This generally means, or generally speaking, for those earning between $45,001 and $135,000, you may be paying less tax on your before tax contributions. So what is the best way to contribute? It depends on your personal circumstances, and you should seek further advice as to what works best for you. We have a range of different advice services. Some are included as part of being a member with Brighter Super, and we will cover these a bit later. So let's assume this member is contributing $5,000 to their super, and they earn between $45,001 and $135,000. If they make an after-tax contribution, the tax paid would be $1,500. If their employer allows them to salary sacrifice, or if they claim a tax deduction, they would be saving around $750 per year based on the difference in tax rates. That's extra money in your pocket. It's up to you as to what to do with this money. You may have an immediate financial commitments or looking towards the future. It can potentially be a great way to boost your retirement savings. So we'll just do a bit of a case study here. We're going to introduce Tina. She's a hypothetical Brighter Super member. Her situation may have similarities to yours, but we have not considered anyone's personal circumstances in this scenario. So Tina has recently turned 55 and is in a position to make extra contributions to her super. She's looking at putting an extra $5,000 per year into her super via salary sacrifice. So in option A, if Tina chooses not to contribute, she may retire with a balance of just over $258,000. However, in option B, if Tina contributes $5,000 per year for 5 years, she could potentially grow her super to just over $280,000, which includes savings over $4,600 in tax along the way. Based on the assumptions and considering her circumstances, Tina may be able to save money in tax and boost her super balance by contributing via salary sacrifice to her super. As you can see, small changes over a period of time can make a big difference. At Brighter Super, we are here to help. So our website contains a range of resources, including our salary sacrifice calculator. It allows you to find out how you can maximise your super by contributing before and or after tax. You can find this and other calculators under our resources tab, and it takes about 10 minutes to complete. It also gives you the option to see if you can afford to contribute more by reducing your take-home pay. Remember that small changes today can make a big difference in the future. Let's discuss another type of contribution in more detail. This was one of our pre-submitted questions for today's webinar, the carried forward contribution. A person may be able to access any unused concessional cap from previous years based on several criteria. It came into effect in 2019-2020 financial year, and eligible members have up to 5 years to use any unused concessional amounts. For example, a member has unused concessional amounts accrued in 2019-2020 financial year. The last year they are able to contribute these amounts is in 2024-2025. To be eligible, you must have a super balance under $500,000 at the start of the financial year in which the contribution is made. Remember, concessional contributions may include salary sacrifice or tax-deductible contributions. You can track your concessional contributions through MyGov. This could help if a member has taken time out of the workforce, can be an opportunity to get on track for retirement. Remember, any money put into super is generally only available once you reach retirement age. For this strategy, we recommend seeking advice to ensure this is right for you. There are also other ways in which you may be able to get extra money into your super. So depending on your personal circumstances, there are other contribution options available. In addition to previously discussed carried forward contribution, these include spouse contribution, bring forward, downsizer, government co-contribution, and the low income tax offset. Like anything, rules and eligibility criteria apply. So for more information, please visit our website or reach out to us. Once you have money in your super, then we want it to grow so it will sustain you throughout your retirement. We do this by investing. The reason why investing produces a return is because there's a risk involved. If you give someone $1 and expect them to pay you $1.20 back next year, there's a risk you won't get your money back. This is the key to investing, understanding that risk. Brighter Super's aim is to grow our members' super balances whilst providing consistent returns. This means we want your investment to grow when markets are performing strongly and reduce the impact when markets start to fall. We place great value on diversification, which means not having all your eggs in one basket. To achieve this, we offer ready-made investment options, which spreads your money across a number of different asset classes to reduce the level of risk. Each of our ready-made investment options offer the benefits of our strategically chosen investments. Depending on what stage of your working life you're at, what your retirement goals are, and how long you've got before you retire, you may want to take more or less risk. And we have options for you. We're going to talk about this over the next few slides. Some people think that their super is in a single asset, but it can potentially be invested in many different assets. Most super funds offer different types of investment choices to their members. Investment choice is selecting which asset class you're invested in, such as Australian shares, international shares, fixed interest, cash, or property. Investment options offered by super funds can either be diversified, investing in a mix of different asset classes, or single sector options, investing on just one asset class. Diversification can be achieved by choosing a ready-made diversified option, such as a growth or balanced investment option, or by choosing a mix of single sector options. Choosing your own mix of different asset classes rather than a ready-made mix. So we're just going to come to our first poll question here. So our poll question is, do you know which investment option you are in? Thank you for participating. Wonderful. Thank you for participating in that. It looks like 70% of you are aware of, what investment you're in. However, 30%, have not an indication of where you are. So that's something to, be aware of. So I guess, assets such as equities, otherwise known as shares, are described as growth assets. These may see volatility over the short term. The value may go up or down, but over the longer term periods, they generally experience higher growth. Asset classes like cash and fixed interest are sometimes described as defensive options. They carry less risk in terms of volatility and returns, and potentially for capital loss, but they also offer less potential for high returns. These options are generally described as low risk, low return. Ready-made diversified options are made up of different mixes of growth and defensive assets. Often, when I'm talking to people about investment choice, I am asked the question, what is the best way to invest my super? And as you can probably imagine, there is not one single investment option or profile that would be a fit for everyone. In fact, there are a number of different things to consider when choosing the right risk profile for you. So what is a risk profile, you may ask? A risk profile is an individual measure of how you feel about risk and return, keeping in mind that there is always a trade-off between these two. It takes into account your tolerance to market falls, as well as your investment timeframe and desired return outcomes. In a perfect world, we would all love high returns without any falls. However, generally speaking, the more risk you take, the better return you should expect in the long term. However, the greater chance of bigger swings, including negative returns in the short term. For example, an aggressive investment is expected to generate a high rate of return over the long term. However, it is likely to fluctuate more in value. What this means is your investment may grow faster over time. However, it will generally lose more when the market dips and produce more frequent negative return years. A more conservative investment, on the other hand, is likely to have fewer negative returns overall and may not drop as far as an aggressive investment during a downturn. However, the trade-off for less downside risk is that the positive returns are expected to be lower over the longer term. Understanding your risk profile and your investment risks is important to help better preserve the market movements and make informed decisions. Being invested outside your risk profile is a risk in itself. So if you're invested too conservatively, that risk may be, that you're missing out on potential returns that you could have had. If you invest too aggressively, you may see greater falls during market instability than you are comfortable with. Both of these scenarios do not result in an optimal outcome. So it is important that you know where you sit. You can find the investment risk profiler on our website under resources. Often, tax is an effective way to take out death insurance, total permanent disability insurance, and income protection through your super. So insurances are very important. They ensure that your loved ones are taken care of and you can no longer take when you can no longer take care of them. Your employer's super contributions and salary sacrifice contributions are taxed at 15%. This is lower than the marginal tax rate for most people. This can make paying for insurances through super tax effective. It is important to only insure what you need with the right level of cover so that you are not paying more premiums than necessary. There are 3 types of insurances you can include within your super. They are death, TPD, and income protection. Death cover provides your loved ones with a lump sum if you were to pass away. TPD pays you a lump sum if you suffer total permanent disablement, TPD. Income protection pays you an income if you're injured or otherwise unable to work. Life insurance pays your loved ones if you pass away or become terminally ill. This means they don't have to worry about money during what will already be a very tough time. These are important insurances, but you need to make sure that you have the right cover. We've covered a lot today, but another item we want to highlight is who is your super going to go to in the event of your passing. So super funds can generally only pay to a dependent or your estate. Dependents are a spouse, child or children, financial dependent, or someone in an interdependent relationship. There are a couple of beneficiary nominations on the screen, but one I want to call out is a binding nomination. A binding nomination legally binds Brighter Super to pay your death benefit to your nominated beneficiary or beneficiaries. This requires a specific form to be completed, which can be found on our website and must be valid at the time of your passing. We have listened to our members and you can select the non-lapsing nomination, which means you do not need to renew your nomination every 3 years. One last thing to consider after this webinar, check your current nomination, which can be found on Member Online. It's important to review this regularly. We understand this can be a complex issue, and we have a dedicated beneficiaries webinar, which takes place regularly, with the next one taking place on the 12th of November. Please visit the seminar page to register. So what actions need to be taken? that you can do today to make sure that your super is on track. It may be worth considering to consolidate your accounts. But what does this mean? It means having multiple accounts, which may not be uncommon if you've had a range of different jobs. You can search for lost or unclaimed super held by the ATO by visiting the MyGov website. From here, you can also consolidate it all. There are a few reasons why this may be a good idea. Firstly, if you have accounts with multiple super funds, you may be paying multiple sets of fees, and so consolidating your funds may save you money. Having all your super in one place can also reduce your paperwork and make it easier to track. Also, additionally, depending on your objectives, it is important to review the performance of all funds of which you are a member and consider this as part of your decision-making process. There may be reasons to retain multiple accounts, and consolidation may not be right for you. Before consolidating, ensure you review any insurance or investment arrangements and to make an informed decision. If in doubt, seek advice. So take action. Before we move to the Q&A section of the webinar, let's summarise some further actions you may wish to take. Consider if you need to have duplicate accounts. You may be paying 2 sets of fees and insurances. Now, not all of us know we have duplicate accounts, but if you've had a lot of jobs, you could have a lot of accounts. Also looking to the balance. If you think there isn't as much as you thought you should have in your super, you may have another account. You can also book in for a super health check with us. There is no additional cost for this, and it is open to non-members too. I will explain shortly how to do this. Make sure you have registered for the member online. From here, you can manage your super online and update things like death beneficiaries, investments, update details, and consolidate accounts. Another action to consider: advice. Today, we've talked about the importance of getting advice several times. Did you know that limited advice is included in your membership, so it's not going to cost you anything? What makes Brighter Super different to other super funds is our commitment to personal service. We have a dedicated team of member account specialists here to support you. If you'd like to talk to one of our staff one-on-one for more general information about your superannuation, why not book in for a super health check? These 15-minute meetings are at no additional cost and cover a range of general topics about your super. The super health check covers a variety of areas. Importantly, reviews your insurance with you. If you would like to book now, there is a QR code on the screen. You will also receive a link to book a super health check in the coming days alongside today's webinar recording. And once you've got the general knowledge, the next step is to get tailored personal advice. So planning for life after work is something we are experts in, and we offer a range of personal advice options suited to individual members' needs. If you're looking for specific information about making contributions or investment strategies, our intrafund advice team can help. This could be a great opportunity to have a financial advisor provide advice around how much insurance you need for your personal circumstances. This is for insurance just for your superannuation account. Book in an over-the-phone meeting with a financial advisor at no additional cost. 2 of the most common questions members ask as they approach retirement age are: how much super do I need to retire? And do I have enough super? A retirement health check with one of our financial advisors will help you answer these questions. We also offer both a scaled and comprehensive personal advice service. This service takes a complete view of your financial situation to tailor advice to suit your individual needs. It's a face-to-face meeting with one of our advice team in Brisbane and various regions over Queensland. Appointments may be arranged via digital channels. The cost will depend on the complexity of the advice, and this cost may be deducted from your Brighter Super accumulation account. It's never too early to start planning for retirement, so talk to us to find out how we can help. Similar to today's Super 101 webinar, our seminar webpage includes a range of upcoming webinar topics. Keep an eye on this page as we update it regularly. On the previous 2 slides, we discussed our range of advice services. These cover our super health checks and intra-fund advice, both of which are at no additional cost to our members, to other types of advice such as retirement health checks, scaled and comprehensive advice. Now, our next poll question is for you. The poll question is, after today's webinar, are you planning to get advice? Oh, that's brilliant. The results are 67% of you are looking at getting some advice. It's a great start. So thank you. Now, today I've covered a lot of ground. So remember, you can also visit the resources tab for calculators and forms and info sheets for more information about what we've discussed. So we've tried to answer your questions throughout today's webinar, but I'll invite Pete back on screen now to ask any questions we couldn't get to in the Q&A chat.
Hi, Chris. Thanks. Some really good information there for our members who are wanting to build their superannuation knowledge. And a lot of the questions that we were asked were actually answered during that presentation. I am conscious of time, people probably taking some time out of their lunch break to attend today. So we've received a couple of questions, but what I would say to anyone who is attending this webinar, all the questions that we've been asked could be answered during one of those complimentary super health checks. So I would recommend at the end of this webinar, using the QR code or reaching out to Brighter Super and booking a super health check and having that question answered in a one-to-one environment. Now, I think that's the best way that people can get their questions answered using that QR code that's on the screen right now. Thanks, Chris.
Oh, thanks, Pete. Thanks so much for that. And thanks again for taking the time to come along and attend our webinar. So one last question before we bring things to a close is, overall, how satisfied were you with today's webinar? So we've got some questions there: very satisfied, satisfied, neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, or very dissatisfied. And thank you very much for attending today's webinar, and we hope to speak with you soon.